It is all systems go as Parliament puts final touches ahead of the State of the Nation address tomorrow evening. Parliament says it has set aside more than 6 million rand for this year's State of the Nation address. President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to reflect on a wide range of political, economic and social matters within domestic and global contexts. This comes as Parliament vows to use its new joint sitting rules to prevent disruptions during SONA this year. Part of the rules prevent MPs from interrupting the President during his State of the Nation address. Well, to talk to these issues around the economy, areas the President needs to look at just in regards to small businesses, inflation at large. Dr Frederich Kirsten joins us live via Teams. A very good afternoon, Dr Frederich. Thanks for your time with us on the SABC at this hour.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
All right, so ahead of SONA, obviously lots of questions hanging in the air at this point. What's your view on our economy, its outlook since the last SONA?
Yeah, I think since the last SONA, I think the economy has still been struggling. I think last year's 2023 SONA, the economy was still lingering with slow growth, but I think it's still struggling. So the whole point of the matter is about whether South Africa can get into a system of increased growth and rather stop from the slow growth and get to a point where they can actually increase the economic growth in the country with time.
Well, speaking of which, what are some of those key economic issues that the President should be addressing given the state of our economy?
So there's a lot of issues. The biggest issue probably hindering growth at the moment is the energy crisis. I think that has been what the government also reiterated in the past, is that the energy crisis is the one thing holding South Africa back. And I think it's also something the government has been trying to really resolve with the help of the private sector in terms of a new partnership with generation capacity. But I do think South Africa is still lingering behind in terms of where it wants to go with the energy crisis or reducing it, especially if you think about load shedding. I think in 2023 SONA, there was a statement by the President that load shedding will be reduced dramatically in 2023. But during the year, we saw probably the worst year of load shedding last year. And I think, especially with the elections coming up, voters will look at blackouts and load shedding rather than the plans the government has in place when they make their choices during the election.
Well, because energy is the lifeblood of any economy, and you've touched on, Eskom, the state-owned enterprises, energy at large, how this impacts mining, the Energy Action Plan, and just the government's inability to deliver on some of its promises there. I wonder at this point if enough is being done to instill investor confidence, given that it is correcting itself, or aiming to at least.
Yes, I think it is. I think there is a movement in the right direction. I think with the private-public partnership in terms of getting investors into South Africa to say, listen, we are providing now a platform for energy generation, which is a really profitable market. And South Africa, I think, is set up almost to do that. That crisis has almost created this opportunity. And I think there was a large investment last year in solar energy, wind resources, and so on. So I think I'm not sure if it's enough yet. I think the private sector or the investors are probably still looking at this year in terms of the election year, in terms of whether these plans can actually be fast-tracked before they invest. But there is the potential there for that type of investment, which does spell some positive growth elements for South Africa in the future if we can get that plan in action.
Well, speaking of which, it is an election year, so the issue of job creation and employment has also come to the fore, given that South Africa has one of the highest unemployment rates in the world. Also shining a spotlight on youth as the future labour force that have been disproportionately affected. What are your thoughts ahead of SONA on that front?
I think the youth unemployment is probably one of the biggest issues combined with the general unemployment, which is one of the highest in the world, but also youth unemployment, because again, youth unemployment really spells different issues within your system. It relates to the lack of job opportunities, but also relates to the education structure. And given I'm coming from university, two of the words you don't want to hear is graduate unemployed. And I think those are two of the saddest words you have, is when someone studies for 7 years but still can't find a job. And I think those are some of the key issues South Africa will need to address moving forward, we need to try and address those issues with an increase in state capacity. As we know, the state is struggling at the moment financially, so we need to increase our state capacity, but also attract investors to create the jobs, because unemployment is in desperate need of being reduced in South Africa.
Dr. Frederich, there were some promises to assist small businesses. I wonder, are you weighing on the impact that government has had on small businesses? There was SEFA, the Small Enterprise Financial Agency, that had been set up to develop digitally, also technology. And then if we extend that, also looking at infrastructure, how has government fared on infrastructure as we speak, given the issue at the ports and some of the delays on that front?
I think the government has let small businesses down the most in South Africa. I think the energy crisis, the impact that load shedding has had on small businesses, the logistic crisis, the railway and port, but also other logistic issues, the roads, it's almost excluding the small businesses from the markets. And I think that is so key, is for small business to operate, they need a platform where they can be profitable, where they can actually be the entrepreneurs that they were born to be. And I think that's so important. And I think moving forward, that should be one of the main things, is saying to South Africans, listen, we are going to provide a platform for small businesses. And via technology has so much potential in terms of transforming small businesses and making them competitive in the market. I think we need to utilize AI, we need to utilize technology and make sure small businesses get what they deserve in terms of their hard work and effort to really run a business, and then get to the point where they can actually connect with the market. Another big issue in South Africa is spatial exclusion. We have a lot of small businesses operating in areas where they don't have the market or access to the market, where, like a Sandton market and so on. And we need to really think about our spatial exclusion as driving economic growth and development moving forward in South Africa.
The issue of NHI and access to healthcare has also, come up, particularly during these election campaigning, that we've seen. And I wonder how you'd weigh in on that, given the promises on that front. And also, so we just look at, some of the sub-indicators for social cohesion, rooting out corruption, how it's also impacted our democracy. What are you observing on that front, just very quickly as we wrap up?
So yes, I think the NHI again is something that's in South Africa now, something that we'll have to look at still. I think there's still a lot of debate around it, but I think it will be signed into policy before the elections. One thing I do think about social cohesion, I think social partnership and social cohesion is so important, where we as South Africans need to pull together public-private partnerships and really move South Africa forward. But we do know that this is we are going into our 30th year of democracy, and I think it's a vital year, watershed moment for South Africa in terms of where we're going and moving forward for the next 5 to 10 years.
Dr. Frederich Kirsten, thank you for your time here on the SABC and for weighing in. We're shining a spotlight on South Africa's economy ahead of the State of the Nation address, some of the expectations, some of the promises, the hits and misses. Again, thank you to him for his time and for weighing in.